There are 95 moons of Jupiter with confirmed orbits as of February 23, 2023. This number does not include a number of meter-sized moonlets thought to be shed from the inner moons, nor hundreds of possible kilometer-sized outer irregular moons that were only briefly captured by telescopes. For, altogether, Jupiter's moons form a satellite system called the Jovian system. The most massive of the moons are the four Galilean moons, Io, Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto, which were independently discovered in 1610 by Galileo Galilei and Simon Marius, and were the first objects found to orbit a body that was neither Earth nor the Sun. Much more recently, beginning in 1892, dozens of far smaller Jovian moons have been detected and have received the names of lovers, or other sexual partners, or daughters of the Roman god Jupiter or his Greek equivalent Zeus. The Galilean moons are by far the largest and most massive objects to orbit Jupiter, with the remaining 91 known moons and the rings together composing just 0.003% of the total orbiting mass. Of Jupiter's moons, 8 are regular satellites with prograde and nearly circular orbits that are not greatly inclined with respect to Jupiter's equatorial plane. The Galilean satellites are nearly spherical in shape due to their planetary mass, and are just massive enough that they would be considered major planets if they were in direct orbit around the Sun. The other 4 regular satellites, known as the inner moons, are much smaller and closer to Jupiter. These serve as sources of the dust that makes up Jupiter's rings. The remainder of Jupiter's moons are outer irregular satellites whose prograde and retrograde orbits are much farther from Jupiter and have high inclinations and eccentricities. The largest of these moons were likely asteroids that were captured from solar orbits by Jupiter before impacts with other small bodies shattered them into many kilometer-sized fragments, forming collisional families of moons sharing similar orbits. Jupiter is expected to have about 100 irregular moons larger than 1 kilometer (0.6 miles) in diameter, plus around 500 more smaller retrograde moons down to diameters of 0.8 kilometers (0.5 miles). Of the 87 known irregular moons of Jupiter, 38 of them have not yet been officially named. The physical and orbital characteristics of the moons vary widely. The 4 Galileans are all over 3,100 kilometers (1,900 miles) in diameter. The largest Galilean, Ganymede, is the 9th largest object in the solar system after the Sun and 7 of the planets, Ganymede being larger than Mercury. All other Jovian moons are less than 250 kilometers (160 miles) in diameter, with most barely exceeding 5 kilometers (3.1 miles). Note 2, their orbital shapes range from nearly perfectly circular to highly eccentric and inclined, and many revolve in the direction opposite to Jupiter's rotation, retrograde motion. Orbital periods range from 7 hours, taking less time than Jupiter does to rotate around its axis, to almost 3 Earth years. Chinese historian Shi Zizong claimed that the earliest record of a Jovian moon, Ganymede or Callisto, was a note by Chinese astronomer Gan De of an observation around 364 BC regarding a reddish star. 11, however, the first certain observations of Jupiter's satellites were those of Galileo Galilei in 1609. By January 1610, he had sighted the 4 massive Galilean moons with his 20 times magnification telescope, and he published his results in March 1610. Simon Marius had independently discovered the moons 1 day after Galileo, although he did not publish his book on the subject until 1614. Even so, the names Marius assigned are used today: Ganymede, Callisto, Io, and Europa. No additional satellites were discovered until E. Barnard observed Amalthea in 1892. With the aid of telescopic photography with photographic plates, further discoveries followed quickly over the course of the 20th century. Himalaya was discovered in 1904, Alara in 1905, Pasiphae in 1908, Sinope in 1914, Lysithea and Karm in 1938, 20, Ananke in 1951, 21, and Leda in 1974. By the time that the Voyager space probes reached Jupiter, around 1979, 13 moons had been discovered, not including the Misto, which had been observed in 1975, but was lost until 2000 due to insufficient initial observation data. The Voyager spacecraft discovered an additional 3 inner moons in 1979, Métis, Adrastea, and Thebe. From November 2021 to January 2023, Shepard discovered 12 more irregular moons of Jupiter and confirmed them in archival survey imagery from 2003 to 2018, bringing the total count to 92. Among these was S/2018 J4, a highly inclined prograde moon that is now known to be in same orbital grouping as the moon Carpo, which was previously thought to be solitary. On February 22, 2023, Shepard announced 3 more moons discovered in a 2022 survey, now bringing Jupiter's total known moon count to 95. In a February 2023 interview with NPR, Shepard has noted that he and his team are currently tracking even more moons of Jupiter, which should place Jupiter's moon count over 100 once confirmed over the next 2 years. Many more irregular moons of Jupiter will inevitably be discovered in the future, especially after the beginning of deep sky surveys by the upcoming Vera C. Rubin Observatory and Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope in the mid-2020s. The Rubin Observatory's 8.4-meter (28 feet) aperture telescope and 3.5 square-degree field of view will probe Jupiter's irregular moons down to diameters of 1 kilometer (0.6 miles, 265 at apparent magnitudes of 24.5, with the potential of increasing the known population by up to tenfold. Likewise, the Roman Space Telescope's 2.4-meter (7.9 feet) aperture and 0.28 square-degree field of view will probe Jupiter's irregular moons down to diameters of 0.3 kilometers (0.2 miles) at magnitude 27.7, with the potential of discovering approximately 1,000 Jovian moons above this size. Discovering this many irregular satellites will help reveal their population size distribution and collisional histories, which will place further constraints to how the solar system formed.